I once lay alone in a hospital bed, bleeding, convinced I had lost my baby, and the man I loved disappeared without a word. 6 years later, he showed up again, right here in the snowy town where I'd hidden myself, standing just feet away from our son, and he didn't even recognize him. My name is Aurora Caldwell. I'm a nurse, a single mom, and living proof that it's possible to rebuild your life from the wreckage. But no one ever warned me what to do when the past comes knocking again. Before I share my story with you, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever had to rise from heartbreak for the sake of your family. Trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens next. The morning Julian Mercer walked back into my life, I was running late. Again. "Mommy, Elias won't share the crayons." Ivy's voice pierced through the kitchen chaos as I stuffed sandwich crusts into lunchboxes. "I need the blue one for the sky." Elias clutched the crayon box to his chest, his dark eyes, so much like his father's, blazing with 6-year-old indignation. "Share, both of you. We need to leave in 5 minutes." I grabbed my coffee, already cold, and gulped it down. The community health center opened at 8, and Dr. Martinez didn't tolerate tardiness, even from part-time nurses. Snowpine, Colorado, population 2,000, wasn't exactly bustling at 7:45 a.m. Main Street lay quiet under fresh December snow, the mountains standing guard like ancient sentinels. I'd chosen this place specifically because no one from my old life would ever find me here. No one important, anyway. I dropped the twins at elementary school, kissing their foreheads despite their protests. "Be good. Aunt Kaya will pick you up after school." The health center smelled like antiseptic and pine. Someone had already plugged in the Christmas tree in the waiting room. I was halfway through morning vitals when Maria, our receptionist, burst through the door. "Aurora, you'll never guess who just rolled into town. Some big-shot developer from Denver. Says he's buying up half the mountain to build a resort." My hand stilled on the blood pressure cuff. "That's nice." "Nice? Girl, he's gorgeous. Black Mercedes, designer suit, the whole package. Definitely not from around here." She fanned herself dramatically. "Julian something. Mercer. That's it." The cuff slipped from my fingers, hitting the floor with a soft thud. "You okay?" Maria frowned. "Fine, just clumsy this morning." I bent to retrieve it, using the moment to steady my breathing. It couldn't be him. The universe wasn't that cruel. But when I straightened and looked through the window, there he was, standing outside the old Fletcher building, pointing at something while 2 men in hard hats nodded along. 6 years hadn't changed him much. Same confident stance, same way of commanding attention without trying. His hair was shorter now, a few early silver threads catching the morning sun. My phone buzzed. A text from the school. "Ivy forgot her lunch money. Can you swing by?" I grabbed my coat. "Maria, I need to run to the school. Emergency." "Everything okay?" "Yes, just forgot something." I kept my head down, walking fast. But as I passed the Fletcher building, I heard it. His laugh. Rich and familiar, it hit me like a physical blow. I'd fallen in love with that laugh once. Had our children because of it. Lost everything when it disappeared from my life. "Excuse me, miss?" I froze. That voice, closer now, professional, polite, distant. Slowly, I turned. Julian stood 3 feet away, close enough that I could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow from a skiing accident during our honeymoon. His eyes, Elias's eyes, swept over me without recognition. "Sorry to bother you. We're looking for the town planning office? 2 blocks down, red brick building." My voice came out steady somehow. "Thanks." He smiled, the polite smile reserved for strangers, and turned away. I stood rooted to the sidewalk, watching him go. He hadn't recognized me. 6 years, 20 pounds of baby weight lost, hair grown long and usually in a messy bun. I was invisible to him. The woman he'd left without a goodbye, pregnant and bleeding in a hospital bed, thinking I'd lost everything. He didn't know about the miracle that happened after he left. How I'd rallied, how the twins had survived despite being born at 32 weeks. How I'd rebuilt my life in this snow-covered nowhere, raised our children alone, created a world where Julian Mercer didn't exist. Now he was here, about to destroy it all over again. Word traveled fast in Snowpine. By evening, everyone knew about the developer from Denver who planned to transform our sleepy town into Aspen's younger sister. I learned this from Dottie at the grocery store, who'd heard it from her son who worked at town hall. Can you imagine? Ski lifts running right up Sentinel Peak, fancy restaurants where Murphy's Bar is now. She shook her gray head, scanning my frozen peas. Change is coming, Aurora. Mark my words. At home, I helped the twins with homework while my mind raced. How long would Julian stay? Would he recognize the children if he saw them? Ivy had my coloring, but Elias was Julian in miniature. Mommy, you're not listening, Ivy complained. Sorry, baby, what were you saying? I said Miss Patterson wants parent volunteers for the Christmas pageant. Can you help? When is it? Next Friday. We're doing it at the community center because the school gym is getting fixed. The community center, where Julian would be holding his investment conference. That night, after tucking the twins in, I sat with Kaya on my front porch, bundled in blankets, sharing a bottle of wine. You're going to have to tell him, she said quietly. Tell who what? I kept my eyes on the stars, brilliant in the clear mountain air. Don't play dumb with me, Aurora Caldwell. Maria described this developer guy, and you went white as a sheet. This is him, isn't it? The ex you never talk about? I took a long sip of wine. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter? Aurora, those kids deserve stability, peace, a life where they're not some rich man's inconvenient secret. The words came out harsher than intended. Kaya was quiet for a moment. What really happened? You've never told me the whole story. I closed my eyes, remembering. I had a miscarriage, or started to. 20 weeks pregnant, alone in our Denver penthouse while Julian was closing some deal in Tokyo. I called him, hysterical, bleeding. His mother answered his phone. Told me it was for the best, that I was never right for her son anyway. That bitch. By the time Julian got back, I was in the hospital. The doctors had stopped the bleeding, but they told me I'd lost the baby. I was so drugged, so heartbroken. I didn't understand they meant one baby, not both. I laughed bitterly. Found out about Elias at my next appointment, after Julian had already filed for divorce. His lawyer said he needed a fresh start after the tragedy. You never told him? I tried. His mother intercepted my calls, returned my letters. After a while, I stopped trying. Started over here instead. Kaya reached over and squeezed my hand. That was then. This is now. Maybe. No maybes. He walked away when I needed him most. We don't need him now. But the universe had other plans. The next evening, I was working late at the center, updating patient files when the front door chimed. I looked up from my computer to find Julian standing in the waiting room, snow in his hair, studying the community bulletin board. My fight or flight instinct kicked in. Flight 1. I ducked behind the desk, crawling toward the back exit. Dignity was a luxury I couldn't afford. Hello, anyone here? His voice carried down the hall. I held my breath, pressed against the wall like a fugitive. After what felt like hours, but was probably 2 minutes, I heard the door chime again. Cautiously, I peered around the corner. Empty. But on the bulletin board, tacked among the yoga class schedules and town meetings, was the Christmas pageant flyer, with a photo from last year's show. A photo that clearly showed Ivy and Elias in their angel costumes, standing front and center. I unpinned it with shaking hands. Too late. If Julian had seen it, if he'd noticed Elias's face, and my phone buzzed. Unknown Denver number. I let it go to voicemail, my heart hammering against my ribs. Everything I'd built, everything I'd protected, balanced on the edge of destruction again. The voicemail was from Julian's assistant, not Julian himself. They needed a local medical professional to be on standby during the investment conference. Dr. Martinez had apparently volunteered me without asking. It's great exposure for the center, he said the next morning, not noticing my death grip on my coffee mug. These Denver types have deep pockets. Maybe they'll throw some funding our way. I wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed to call in sick, leave town, do anything but be in the same room as Julian Mercer for 3 hours. But in a town this small, you didn't turn down opportunities to help, not if you wanted to keep fitting in. The pressure mounted from unexpected directions. First, the Denver papers picked up the story. Mercer Industries to transform Sleepy Mountain Town ran alongside a photo of Julian that the twins noticed over breakfast. That man looks fancy, Ivy observed, getting jam on the newspaper. He looks mean, Elias decided, like Mr. Henderson when we're too loud in art class. Then came the whispers. Snowpine thrived on gossip, and someone, probably Maria, bless her nosy heart, had done some digging. Didn't you used to live in Denver? Dottie asked at the store, her eyes bright with curiosity. Briefly, I said, focusing intently on selecting apples. Same time as that developer. What a coincidence. By Thursday, my supervisor called me in. Aurora, I need to ask something delicate. Patricia Reeves was usually direct, but kind. Today, she just looked uncomfortable. There's been some talk about you and Mr. Mercer potentially having a history. I don't see how that's relevant to my work. It's not, normally. But the state funding committee is watching this conference closely. If there's any hint of impropriety or scandals, are you seriously suggesting my theoretical past with someone affects my ability to take blood pressure and give vaccines? I'm suggesting that optics matter. I'm sorry, Aurora, just keep a low profile during the conference, please. I left her office feeling like I'd been slapped. 6 years of building a reputation, of being the reliable one, the one who showed up during blizzards and stayed late for worried mothers. None of it mattered if the wrong person asked the wrong questions. That evening, I was helping with pageant rehearsals when everything tilted sideways. Elias had just delivered his line about following the star when the community center door opened. Julian walked in with 2 other suits, touring the facility. And this is our main hall, the town manager was saying. We can set up for 200 people easily. I grabbed Elias and Ivy, steering them toward the back. Let's practice your song in the other room. But Mom, we're supposed to… Now please. We made it 3 steps before I heard Mrs. Caldwell. Patricia Reeves, impeccable timing as always, waved me over to where she stood with the touring group. This is Aurora, one of our nurses. Aurora, Mr. Mercer is interested in our community health programs. I turned slowly, keeping the twins slightly behind me. Julian's professional smile was already in place, hand extended. Then his eyes dropped to the children and the smile faltered. Hello, I managed. He stared at Elias. The resemblance, in this lighting, was undeniable. Same nose, same stubborn chin, same way of tilting his head when puzzled. These are your children? His voice sounded strange. Careful. Yes, they're beautiful. He looked between them, then back at me. Something shifted in his expression. How old? 6. The calculation was visible on his face. I saw the exact moment he started to wonder. We should get back to rehearsal, I said quickly. Nice to meet you, Mr. Mercer. I herded the twins away, feeling his eyes boring into my back. Behind us, I heard Patricia apologizing for the interruption, the tour moving on, but the damage was done. That night, an envelope appeared under my door. Expensive paper, familiar handwriting. We need to talk, Shay. Below it, an address. His hotel, tomorrow, 8 p.m. I crumpled the note, then smoothed it out, then crumpled it again. The twins slept peacefully down the hall, unaware that their carefully constructed world was fracturing. Tomorrow, I'd have to choose. Face the past or run from it. Neither option promised survival. I never went to the hotel. Instead, I spent Friday evening making hot chocolate and reading Polar Express to the twins, pretending everything was normal. Pretending the weather reports weren't promising the storm of the decade. Pretending my phone wasn't buzzing with increasingly urgent texts from an unknown number. By Saturday morning, Snowpine was buried. 3 feet of snow and counting, winds that shook the windows, power lines down across half the county. The twins were ecstatic. Can we build a snow fort? Elias bounced on the couch. After breakfast, if the wind dies down. It didn't. By noon, the storm had intensified into a full blizzard. Travel warnings scrolled across the TV between static bursts. The governor declared a state of emergency. I was checking our firewood supply when someone pounded on the door. Through the frosted glass, I saw a figure hunched against the wind. Please, Julian's voice barely audible over the storm. My car's stuck. The hotel evacuated to the high school, but I can't make it that far. Every instinct said to leave him there. But the twins were watching, and I'd raised them to be kind. Mommy, someone needs help, Ivy said solemnly. I opened the door. Julian stumbled in, covered in snow, shivering violently. His expensive coat was useless against a Colorado blizzard. The twins stared with open curiosity. "Thank you," he managed through chattering teeth. "Kids, go get some towels from the bathroom." They scampered off. I faced my ex-husband, dripping on my entry mat. "You can wait out the storm, then you leave." "Aurora, we need to—" "No, we don't." I kept my voice low. "You're a stranger who needed shelter, that's all." The lights flickered, then died. The twins squealed from upstairs. Emergency protocols kicked in. I'd weathered enough mountain storms to know the drill. Flashlights, candles, move everyone to the living room where the fireplace could keep us warm. Julian helped without being asked, carrying sleeping bags and blankets downstairs. The twins, thrilled by the adventure, peppered him with questions. "Are you really stuck here?" Ivy asked. "Afraid so." "Do you know how to play Go Fish?" Elias produced a deck of cards. "It's been a while, but I think I remember. I built up the fire while they played by candlelight." Watching Julian with them was surreal. The careful way he let Ivy win, how he laughed when Elias cheated badly. He'd always said he wasn't ready for children, needed to focus on his career, build the empire first, family later. "Mommy, can Mr. Julian read us a story?" Ivy asked as bedtime approached. "I don't think— Please," Elias joined in. "You always say we should be nice to guests." Trapped by my own teachings. Julian looked at me, questioning. I nodded once. He read Where the Wild Things Are, doing voices that made the twins giggle. When they finally dozed off in their sleeping bags by the fire, we sat in silence, watching the flames. "They're incredible," he said finally. "Yes? Aurora, are they— Don't." I pulled my knees to my chest. "Just don't. I have a right to know." "Rights?" I laughed bitterly. "You gave up rights when you served me divorce papers in a hospital bed. That's not— I never meant—" He raked a hand through his hair. "When I got back from Tokyo, Mother said you'd lost the baby, that you blamed me, never wanted to see me again. The divorce was supposed to be what you wanted." "Your mother said a lot of things." I stared into the fire. "Did you ever wonder why I never signed the papers? Why your lawyer had to track me down 3 times? I thought you were being difficult." "I was trying to tell you about them." I nodded toward the sleeping twins. "But every call was blocked, every letter returned. After a while, I got the message. I never knew. I swear to God, Aurora, I never knew." "Would it have mattered?" He was quiet so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I don't know. I was different then. Ambitious and stupid and—" He looked at the children. "I thought success mattered more than anything." "And now?" "Now I know better. Too late, but I know." The fire crackled. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, 2 people who'd once promised forever sat 3 feet and a lifetime apart, watching their children sleep between them. The storm passed, but its aftermath lingered. Power lines down, roads impassable. The town digging out slowly. Julian left Sunday afternoon when the plows finally reached our street. He paused at the door, looking back at the twins building snowmen in the yard. "Can I—" "No." I didn't let him finish. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. I need time to think." He nodded and left. But I knew this wasn't over. By Wednesday, the investment conference loomed. The town had pulled together remarkably. Generators humming, community center transformed into a sleek presentation space. I worked the medical station, taking refuge in routine tasks, checking supplies I'd already checked twice. The investors arrived in waves. Denver money, East Coast money, even some international faces. Julian commanded the room effortlessly, painting visions of sustainable development and ecotourism that somehow respected Snowpine's character while transforming its economy. I had to admit, it was brilliant. Nothing like the slash-and-burn development I'd expected. He'd done his homework, understood what the town needed versus what would make the quickest profit. 15-minute break, someone announced. I escaped to the supply closet, needing space to breathe. The door opened behind me. "Hiding?" Kaya slipped in, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Working," I corrected, accepting the cup gratefully. "Right. That's why you're reorganizing tongue depressors." She studied me. "He keeps looking for you, you know, during his presentation." His eyes sweep the room and pause at the medical station. "Kaya, I'm just saying, maybe the man's learned something in 6 years." "It doesn't matter what he's learned. I can't just—" I stopped, hearing raised voices outside. We cracked the door. One of the investors, a sharp-faced woman in Chanel, was speaking rapidly to Julian in low, urgent tones. A potential scandal is unacceptable. The board won't approve funding if there's even a hint of impropriety. Hidden families, secret children, it's a PR nightmare waiting to happen. There's no scandal, Julian replied evenly. Then why are locals whispering about you and some nurse? We've invested too much in your reputation to have it destroyed by small-town drama. My stomach dropped. This was exactly what I'd feared. Being reduced to small-town drama, my children becoming leverage in someone else's power game. Julian's response was too quiet to hear, but the woman's laugh was crystal clear. Fix it, Julian. Make it go away or we walk. $20 million doesn't grow on trees. They moved away. Kea whistled low. 20 million? That's a lot to lose over some kids. It's not about money, I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. Of course it was about money. It always had been with Julian's world. The conference resumed. I stayed at my station, watching Julian work the room, charm investors, paint dreams. He was good at this. It's what he'd chosen over us the first time. Near the end, something shifted. Julian took the microphone for closing remarks, but instead of the expected platitudes, he paused. His eyes found mine across the room. Before we conclude, I need to address something. His voice carried clearly. There have been questions about my personal connections to Snowpine. I want to be transparent. The room stilled. The Chanel woman's face went rigid. 6 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I walked away from someone who needed me, believed lies instead of seeking truth. I lost more than I knew. He never broke eye contact with me. If this project moves forward, you should know I have personal reasons for wanting to do right by this town. If that's unacceptable to any investor, I understand, but I won't lie about it. Not anymore. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Chanel woman stood abruptly, gesturing to her team. Others followed. Within minutes, a third of the investors were heading for the exits. Patricia Reeves looked ready to faint. The town manager gripped his chair. Months of preparation, dreams of prosperity, crumbling because Julian Mercer had decided to tell the truth. He set down the microphone and walked straight toward me, leaving chaos in his wake. "What did you just do?" I whispered. "What I should have done 6 years ago," he said simply. "Chosen you." The fallout was swift and brutal. By evening, the Denver papers had the story. Mercer Industries CEO tank steel over personal drama. Financial blogs speculated about his mental state. The remaining investors demanded emergency meetings. I became the town pariah overnight. Patricia called to inform me, in carefully professional terms, that my services wouldn't be needed at the center until things calmed down. Parents whispered at school pickup. Even Dottie at the grocery store could barely meet my eyes. "Mommy, why is everyone acting weird?" Ivy asked after a particularly awkward encounter at the post office. "It's complicated, baby." "Is it because of Mr. Julian? Mary Beth's mom said he ruined everything because of some lady." I knelt to her level. Sometimes adults make things more complicated than they need to be. Julian tried calling. I didn't answer. He sent flowers. I composted them. He showed up at the house. I threatened to call the sheriff. "Aurora, please, let me explain." Explain what? How you destroyed the town's future to make a grand gesture? How my kids are getting bullied because their mom is the reason Snowpine won't get new jobs? I kept my voice low, aware of neighbors watching through curtains. "You don't get to wreck our lives twice. I'm trying to fix this. Like you fixed our marriage? Just go, Julian. Do what you do best. Leave." But he didn't leave. Instead, he called a town meeting for Friday night. The entire population of Snowpine crammed into the high school gymnasium, buzzing with curiosity and resentment. I sat in the back with Kaya, hood up, trying to be invisible. The twins were at her mother's house. I couldn't risk them hearing whatever happened next. Julian took the stage without notes, without his usual polish. He looked tired, older, real in a way I hadn't seen since our early days. "I owe you all an apology," he began. "Not for being honest at the conference, but for not being honest from the beginning." He told them everything. Our marriage, the miscarriage that wasn't, his mother's interference, the divorce he thought I wanted, finding me here, discovering the twins, The impossible choice between money and truth. I've spent 6 years building an empire on the belief that success meant never showing weakness, never admitting fault. But that kind of success is worthless if it costs you everything that matters. An uncomfortable silence filled the gym. Then, from somewhere in the middle of the crowd, a question. So, what happens now? We're back to being nobody? Julian smiled grimly. No, because one of the investors who walked out called me this morning. Richard Chen from Chen Hospitality Group. He was impressed that I chose transparency over profit. He wants to discuss a different kind of development, smaller scale, community-focused, sustainable. The kind that makes towns thrive, not just survive. And he's not worried about scandal? Someone else called out. He said integrity is rare in business. He'd rather invest in someone who tells difficult truths than comfortable lies. The crowd stirred, hope mixing with skepticism. Then old Mr. Franklin, who'd run the hardware store for 40 years, stood up. What about the nurse? Aurora? She didn't ask for any of this. Heads turned, searching for me. I shrank lower in my seat. No, she didn't, Julian agreed. She came here to build a quiet life and raise her children in peace. I disrupted that. If this town moves forward with any development, she deserves your respect, not your judgment. The failure 6 years ago was mine. The intrusion now is mine. Whatever anger you have, direct it at me. Our children, I said, standing before I could stop myself. They're our children. The gymnasium went silent. Julian's face transformed. Surprise, hope, something that looked dangerously like joy. Our children. He repeated softly like a prayer. I sat down quickly, face burning. But something had shifted in the room. The tide of resentment was turning, not toward forgiveness maybe, but toward understanding. People had come for blood. Instead, they'd gotten truth. In a small town, that was worth more than $20 million. After the town meeting, things changed slowly. The whispers softened to curious glances. Patricia called to say I could return to work Monday. Parents nodded at school pickup instead of looking away, but Julian was gone. He left this morning, Kaya informed me over Saturday coffee. Saw his car heading out toward Denver. Good. I ignored the twist in my stomach. Maybe now things can go back to normal. Aurora. She set down her mug. The man stood up in front of the entire town and took responsibility. He chose you over money. Twice. When are you going to stop punishing him for who he used to be? When I'm sure he won't do it again. Newsflash, there are no guarantees, but hiding here isn't living, it's just existing. That night, I found the twins in Elias's room, huddled over the tablet Kaya had given them for Christmas. What are you two doing? They jumped guiltily. Nothing, but I saw the screen. Google search results for Julian Mercer. Pictures of their father at galas, groundbreakings, charity events, always alone. Is he our dad? Elias asked quietly. I sat on the bed between them. 6 years of careful deflection of your father lives far away, of subject changes and half-truths. They deserved better. Yes. Why didn't you tell us? Ivy's lower lip trembled. Because I was scared and hurt, and I thought I was protecting you. From what? From disappointment? From abandonment? From the hollow ache of loving someone who chose ambition over family? But looking at their faces, open, curious, ready to love, I realized I'd been protecting myself. From things that might not even happen, I admitted. Can we meet him? Like really meet him? Elias asked. I'll think about it. But Julian had vanished. No calls, no texts, no flowers. Days passed. The Chen investment moved forward with a local management team. The town buzzed with cautious optimism while I felt oddly bereft. I'd pushed him away, gotten what I wanted. So why did victory taste like loss? Friday morning, the answer came via registered mail. Legal documents. My heart sank. Here it was, the custody battle I'd dreaded. But reading closer, I gasped. Julian was transferring his shares in the Snowpine development to a trust. The beneficiaries, Ivy and Elias Caldwell. The trustee, me, the value, enough to pay for college, grad school, and a comfortable start in life. No strings, no conditions. Just a father providing for children he'd known for less than 2 weeks. A sticky note was attached to the last page. They deserve everything I never gave them, and you deserve peace. J. Mommy, why are you crying? Ivy appeared at my elbow. I'm not, but I was. 7 years of tears. Finally falling. That evening, Kaya burst in without knocking. He's at the bus station. What? Julian, Tom saw him buying a ticket. Last bus to Denver leaves in 20 minutes. I looked at the twins, building Legos on the living room floor, at the trust documents on the kitchen table, at the life I'd built in hiding, and the chance at something more standing at a bus stop in the snow. Watch them? I asked Kaya. She practically shoved me out the door. Go! I drove too fast through streets still icy from the last storm. The bus station, a generous term for a bench and a shelter, came into view. Julian sat alone, shoulders hunched against the cold, one suitcase at his feet. I parked and walked over slowly, remembering another snowy goodbye 7 years ago. How he'd kissed me at the airport, promised to join me in a week, and never came. Running away? I asked. He looked up, startled. Giving you space, isn't that what you wanted? I wanted a lot of things. To never see you again. To make you hurt like I hurt. To protect our children from disappointment. I sat beside him. But maybe what I want is changing. Aurora, I'm not saying yes to anything, but I'm not saying no either. I'm saying, stay. Let's figure this out. Not for them, not for the town, not for appearances. For us. The bus pulled up, doors opening with a pneumatic hiss. Julian looked at it, then at me. He picked up his suitcase and walked back to my car. 3 months later, Dad, you're doing it wrong. Elias laughed as Julian struggled with the banner. It's supposed to be straight. I'm trying, Julian protested from the ladder. Engineering degree, apparently useless for hanging decorations. The Snowpine Spring Festival was in full swing. Main Street bloomed with vendors, music, and the kind of community joy that made small towns magic. The twins ran between booths, faces painted like butterflies, sticky with cotton candy. Let me, I said, climbing up to help him. Our hands brushed, adjusting the banner. Still, after everything, that simple touch sparked something. Thanks, he said softly. 3 months of careful steps, coffee dates while the twins were at school, family dinners where he learned Ivy hated broccoli and Elias would eat anything if it had ketchup. Bedtime stories he'd volunteered for, voices getting better each time, small moments building into something that felt dangerously like hope. He'd kept his apartment in Denver, but spent most weekends here. The development project progressed under Chen's guidance. Thoughtful growth that enhanced rather than erased. Julian consulted but didn't lead, choosing presence over power. Aurora! Dr. Martinez waved from the health center booth. Can you help with blood pressure screenings? Go, Julian said. We've got banner duty covered. I watched him with the twins, Ivy directing the artistic vision while Elias provided commentary. My mother had asked, during one of our careful phone calls, if I'd forgiven him. I'm trying, I'd said. And yourself? She'd asked gently. For hiding them? For running? That was harder. Forgiveness was a daily choice, like choosing to trust when trust had been shattered. Like letting him teach Elias to throw a baseball when I'd been the only teacher for 6 years. Like allowing Ivy to draw our family with 4 people instead of 3. Mommy, look! Ivy ran over, dragging Julian by the hand. Dad says we can get a dog. Dad said we could talk about getting a dog. Julian corrected, shooting me an apologetic look. As a family decision. As a family. We weren't there yet. Not legally, not fully. But we were something. Movie nights squeezed together on my small couch. Pancake Saturdays with too much syrup and laughter. Homework help that turned into math lessons that turned into stories about Julian's childhood I'd never heard. A dog would be nice, I admitted, earning twin cheers. The festival continued around us. Neighbors who'd watched our careful dance with knowing smiles, newcomers drawn by the town's growing reputation, kids from the elementary school performing their spring concert. Ladies and gentlemen, Principal Patterson took the stage. Our second graders would like to perform a special song. The twins scrambled up with their classmates. Ivy whispered something to the music teacher who nodded. The opening notes played and my breath caught. This Is Home by Switchfoot. The song I'd sung to them as babies, alone in a Denver hospital, promising we'd find where we belonged. Ivy's voice rose clear and sweet. I've got my memories, always inside of me, but I can't go back to how it was. Julian's hand found mine. I didn't pull away. Where I belong, where your love has been strong. The crowd swayed along, but I only saw our children. Confident, loved, whole despite my fears. They'd found their home not in a place, but in the people who chose them daily. The song ended to enthusiastic applause. The twins bounded off stage and into our arms. Did you like it? Elias asked breathlessly. Perfect, Julian said, voice rough. The best, I agreed. That evening, after cotton candy crashes and successful dog negotiations, I found a moment alone with Julian on my porch. The same spot where we'd weathered the blizzard, where everything changed. Thank you, I said, for staying, for trying, for not giving up when I gave you every reason to. Thank you for letting me. We're not fixed, I warned. There's still hurt, still fear. Still time, he finished. All the time we need. Inside, the twins played with their new festival prizes. Outside, spring arrived in earnest. Snow melting, flowers blooming, life returning after a long winter. I'd spent 6 years in the cold, convinced it was safer than risking warmth again. But watching Julian help our daughter with a puzzle, hearing our son's laugh echo through the house, feeling this fragile new trust take root, maybe spring was worth the risk. In my journal that night, I wrote, I once lost everything in the cold, but he came back and stayed and stood in the snow with me until spring arrived. We're not who we were. We're who we chose to become. And that's enough. More than enough. It's home. Through the window, snow-capped peaks caught the last light of day, standing guard over a small town where broken things mended slowly, where second chances bloomed like wildflowers, where love was not a guarantee but a choice made fresh each morning. We'd found our way beneath the snowfall, and spring, when it came, was worth the wait.